Hey guys, Chauncey Phillips here. Welcome to brand new DVD Blu-ray Tuesday shopping video today. Today, you're going to try and go to a couple different spots today, see what kind of stuff's come out, see what kind of things are on sale. Also going to have a bunch of different reviews at the end of this video. It's going to be splitting up the update, so I'll have my main Blu-ray DVD update up as well this weekend as well, so definitely be sure to check that out. But like I said, there's going to be some reviews at the end of this video. So anyway though guys, let's get going and see what we can find today. Into the Family Dollar we go. Well, it seems like they got a bunch of different new movies in here. Like they haven't, I come in here every so often to see if they change it up, and sometimes they do. But see if there's anything different or interesting in here. They always have in here, the one thing that's kind of funny is a ton of these like loose discs that I guess come from like Blockbuster, or you know when Blockbuster was closing they bought a lot of these, or like rental places, or I'm guessing like Redbox or something like that. But it's always really weird ones like Betty Boop and Friends and The Debt and Daffy. There's like some strange weird ones in here. Yeah, this is definitely one, I bet, from like, you know, a Redbox, like, you know, Ouija exorcism. Yeah, I think that even, yeah, it is a Redbox thing on it. So I guess they like buy them from the machine for like, I don't know what, if they're selling them for like $2 or $3, they're probably buying them for like 25 cents and stuff. The Vinci Treasures, like an Asylum movie. The Call of the Wild. This is like a weird one in here, like a old Good Times release one. That's kind of a weird one to see in here. Like Good Times though, those ones, I always, when I think of them, I don't know if any of you guys ever think of Kmart, but I used to always go in there and like buy the VHS tapes when I was a kid of things, and the quality of them was always so terrible. It was like some of the worst picture quality, and a lot of times they were like TV prints of things, and sometimes they were edited up and stuff like that. Yeah, see, here's another one from the Redbox, Saddle Up. Yeah, so looks like a lot of like these kind of weird ones, and this is really strange. It's a thing from One Direction, and it's like a UK release. So who even knows if this is a region A release? Would even work. But it seems like a lot of these, just a lot of these kind of things. And this one's kind of weird to see in here. This Kevin Smith, one of his stand-up things. I will show you too, there's this weird movie in here. I always love this movie called Bubble, Steve Soderbergh movie, that I feel like hardly anyone saw. But you guys have never seen this, you definitely have to watch this. It was all done with real people, no actors, and then acting in this movie. And like something about the performances in this were better than any actor you've ever seen in your life. They were like amazing, really weird movie. Into Movies 94 Cents we go. See if there's anything interesting in here. A lot of this is mainly rental, but sometimes they have a couple things scattered through here that you can buy and stuff. But I always come in here every so often to see if anything changes. It's got a real cool look in here to it. And it's like weird thing that I think was like this weird rock thing that reminds me of like this thing I went to as a kid. Like it's sort of done like a castle or something in here. One thing with these places, every time I come in them, I always look for the, you know, the sun-drenched movies. You know, all the things, they're right by the window like this. It always did this. I always remember this at Blockbuster too. The classic sun-drenched. I used to always see the Toxic Avenger ones. They used to, because I remember in Blockbuster too, when that first opened, they used to have like the windows all exposed. And then later on, years through the store, they used to put things to cover the windows to keep everything from getting so sun-drenched and like totally washed out and stuff. There's something about these, you know, that when you see them like this, always really reminds you of like classic video rental places when things are totally sun-drenched. It's like the thing to look for. Into the Goodwill we go. Yeah, they have an old, you know, National Lampoon's Vacation Laserdisc. I guess those are all Laserdiscs back there. You don't really see them too often in a Goodwill, at least not that I've seen really many Laserdiscs. Next to those shoes that look like the ones that Cousin Eddie gave to him from the movie. They're very similar. And we'll see if there's anything in here. They don't often change this stuff out. A lot of times it's the same stuff you see for a really long time. But here's this Children of the Corn, the Divimax edition. I always remember that when they had these kind of like weird different ones like Super Bit and all those kind of things. And now I think 4K is going to be the thing where I think it'll, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how that does and if people really start to embrace that or not. Christine in here. See that way, and they have Dawn of the Dead, which I think this is actually hard to find now. And I know the Blu-rays, I believe, out of print, but I already have that. And then see anything else in here? Turn Living Dead, but nothing too majorly different in here. Into Walmart we go. So the main thing today was Trombone. I don't know too much about that one. Let me know if this one is worth checking out. But the other one today was Steve Jobs. So I'm going to review this at the end of this video. And I actually kind of like this one. And then the 33 and Black Mass, which was actually a pretty cool movie. Yeah, well, it seems like over here it's all the same stuff. Like, oh, I think they just added this one out, Julia, which is one I definitely want to check out at some point. So I've heard some pretty decent things about this one. This is definitely one I'm going to check out for sure down the line. But I think that's one of the only new things that I notice over here. As far as I can tell, I think this is all what's been here in the last few weeks. I'm going to have a review of this one at the end of this video. That was a really pretty cool movie, though. It's funny, this one I talked about a while back, and they have like a different cover on that. It's like I said, it's funny when Walmart does like different covers on that. This Silent Retreat one. Can't remember where the other cover was, but I know this one is a different one that they put on that. Into FYE we go. I'm just gonna look through here and see if there's anything different. Like I always said, I always just come in here and look at the tops of things, and I always remember this weird compilation thing of all these like horror movie scenes and stuff. And they used to always sell these like at the Halloween stores and stuff. They haven't done anything like this in years though, because now everybody just sort of looks them up online. But back then, he was like kind of a big thing years ago. But seeing if anything changes, and a lot of times it's the same stuff in here for weeks and weeks. But every so often they put something new in here. But like I said, I always just look at the top of the thing that says used, and that's the easiest way to see what's the used stuff, to see if, you know, if we're out of print things. This one is one I always look at every time I come in here, Big Trouble. This is like the original of that one they did with Tim Allen that they made a remake of. But I feel like I never even really knew there was this original one, but I think it actually is kind of valuable for some reason. It's in their clearance thing, but I never really knew if it was really worth watching or not. And over here they put like the newer releases of stuff. They have like Burnt and things like that that are newer, like used titles that have just come in and stuff. And this seems like they update this every so often, but like I said, it's a lot of times it's the same thing for a while. Like this is a new one, but sometimes their new prices of these things are like more than they are when you get them new in actually places. I mean, these used prices of stuff like this by now, it's American Sniper is way cheaper than that now. You know, for a new one of it, new copy of it. Like, see, for this one, this is kind of high for a used copy of Last Witch Hunter, because that's like cheaper everywhere else now, you know, for a new one. So that's all for this DVD Blu-ray Tuesday shopping video, guys. Like I always say, if you guys enjoy these videos, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Now stay tuned for some new DVD and Blu-ray reviews. The first one I got from Arrow Video US is the Pam Grier film Sheba Baby. Really cool blaxploitation film. One of the later blaxploitation films that Pam Grier did, right before I believe she stopped doing these kind of films for quite a bit. Then she came back, you know, and did Jackie Brown, which was kind of a throwback, you know, that Quentin Tarantino did to her films, you know, like Foxy Brown and Coffee and a number of different ones. But this one is from Arrow Video US. Really great transfer from this. This is basically, though, the story is, you know, Pam Grier's father, you know, runs this loan company. There's this mob boss guy who's kind of trying to rough him up and get him out of the business because he wants to take over the place. And there's people kind of going in there and messing with things. And right when she goes there to try and help the father, because she hears what is going on over there, his car ends up, you know, they put a car bomb in there, and he almost ends up getting killed. It's basically, though, Pam Grier's character trying to figure out who this guy is and how she's going to stop him with all the kind of issues and things that go along with all the people in the crime, you know, world that are after her and stuff like that. Cool action film, though. Has on here, though, interview with Pam Grier talking about the AIP films, the films that she did around this era. Like I said, there's a whole lot of different ones, and Arrow's going to be putting out another one, too, I think in a month or so. I think it's like Black Mamba, White Mamba. I believe that's the title of that. But as I said, really great transfer on this. 2 different commentary tracks on this. Another interview, some other interviews as well on this. The next one is the Steve Jobs film. They made the one film before about Steve Jobs that, you know, that Ashton Kutcher was in, just called Jobs. And that was basically like his whole life, his whole story of how he started and things like that. This one, though, this one's from Universal, and this is actually was pretty interestingly done. I think not everyone will love the movie just the way it was made, but, you know, it's Danny Boyle directed this movie, you know, did 28 Days Later, Slumdog Millionaire, tons of different movies, Train Spotting, and this is, you know, Michael Fassbender, you know, as Steve Jobs, and this is basically showing Steve Jobs at 3 different product launches, right when he was launching the Apple in 1984, you know, with the big, you know, the commercial that he did that was like the 1984 movie, and then when he had a terrible, you know, fight with Apple and ended up leaving, and he tried to launch his own company, his own like computer that was like way overpriced, and then it's eventually him launching the iMac in 1998. And it's kind of like basically what's going on behind the scenes at all these different events. The first event, the kind of the problems that's going on with his wife and his daughter, and their kind of, or his ex-wife, and their kind of fights that they're having, all the kind of turmoil and all the issues going on behind the scenes. And it's basically, that's what it is. It's basically 3 different vignettes, and they shot it all in different formats too. So they shot the first one on film, then they shot it on I think it was 16 millimeter the first segment, then 35 millimeter, and then digital the 1998. So that gave it a kind of cool look to give it those kind of different formats of kind of what was in at the time. I actually liked it. So I think I said it's not like the Steve Jobs, the other movie, where it was, and I liked that it was like different, that it was basically just 3 different vignettes about what was going on and showing all the issues behind the scenes. And it was actually, to me, I actually did like it. Has on here though a making of Steve Jobs and a commentary track. The next one from Cinedigm. It's a pretty cool movie starring Harry Steinfeld, from Pitch Perfect to a number of different movies. And this movie is called The Keeping Room. This was actually pretty good. The director of this did Harry Brown, and it's basically about these 2 Civil War guys who has basically broken off from the pact, and they've kind of like gone crazy. They're going around killing people and like doing all kinds of heinous, terrible things. And it's about these 3 girls who are, these 2 girls, and then the one who's a slave at the time, because this takes place during that era, and these 2 sisters, and they're basically left at home because their mother had died, their father's out at war, so they don't know if he's ever going to come back or not. But these 3 guys, there's 2 guys end up basically seeing the one character who ends up going to because the one sister, Haley Steinfeld's character, gets injured and she needs medicine, so the sister ends up going out to the town to find this medicine. Of course, she gets out there and those 2 weird guys are out there. It's basically them following back to the house and them having to defend themselves and what happens. And, I actually thought it was really well-made movie, and kind of sad too, and kind of like, it's never been like a movie, at least that I thought of, about this. Also, it's one of those movies too, it's almost like I would like to see a sequel, because if you see what happens in this movie, it was almost like, oh well, you could almost have a whole other movie of what goes on. But it has on here though, making of the movie. But like I said, this was really worth watching. The next one is another one I actually saw this in theaters. This was actually one of my favorite movies of the year, and I had this on the list. And it's one of those movies I think hardly anyone has seen. I feel like hardly anyone's going to see this movie, and really people need to check this movie out. It's called A Girl Like Her, and it's it's a movie all about bullying, and it's about these 2 girls who were friends, and you know how like in school, sometimes these people who are friends and they end up becoming enemies with each other, and the one girl, Hunter King, is basically picking on the one girl so terribly and making her life miserable, and the terrible things she does. So her and her friend, the girl's getting picked on, and her friend, this guy, end up putting these hidden cameras on these glasses and kind of filming to show people how bad it is, because no one believes it. The teachers do nothing. It's one of those situations, it's always like that in school. The teachers do nothing and ignore it. So they basically film it and show what happened. And beginning of the movie, the one girl ends up overdosing on this medicine and getting in a coma. And it's kind of the whole reaction of people seeing this video and what it does. And like I said, if you're, I think this is one of those movies that really everybody really needs to see, especially people who are in school too. I think it really points out things, and Hunter King's performance in this was really, really good. Really strong movie. Really recommend this. It has on here interviews and a featurette and a bullying PSA. The next one from Image is Kill or Be Killed. And this has a bunch of cameos in this movie. Who was in this movie? Edwin Neal, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. Michael Berryman from Hills Have Eyes. The one guy who played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So a whole bunch of different people. It's a kind of a Western movie about these gang of these guys who are going around robbing banks and kind of things like that, and they kind of hear about this map of this really big score that they've come across, and it's kind of them going on the journey to try and get this money, but along the way they're kind of robbing things and kind of taking people hostage and killing people. Lots of people getting killed along the way of this journey that they're going on to try and get this money, and it's like a huge nightmare. They come into these towns, all these kind of issues, and there's also someone on their tail that maybe somebody that found out about this money too, and you don't know what's going on. It's like I said, people are kind of getting killed off along the way. But really cool too for a lot of cameos. Michael Berryman has a funny scene in this too. Like one of the lines that he says is ridiculous. This is the way it came across. It has on here though like a making of to doing an indie western, deleted scenes and interviews, but a pretty cool western movie. The next one is called Badge of Honor, and this is another one that has a lot of people in this. Mina Savari's in this, Haley Duff, Martin Sheen. And one guy who was in the movie Swim Fan, he's been in a lot of stuff, but I always think of him from Swim Fan. This movie's called Badge of Honor, and it's basically, about, Mina Savari's character who just got the first, started working on the force, and sees two guys who are these cops who ended up accidentally killing this kid, and it's become a huge cover-up thing that they've done it, and they're kind of trying to cover it up and making it like, figuring out how they're going to cover this up and make it like this kid did something. And Mina Savarni is basically having to go and interview these guys and talking about them, what happened, and trying to put the pieces together and see if they were in the wrong and what had happened. But there's like I said, there's a lot of cover up stuff going on, and it's pretty much like those situations when you hear a lot of cop stuff where they want to kind of bury this and make it so it doesn't end up going on them and making them look bad. And there's like people in the force who are kind of in on it and trying to cover it up for these guys. And that's essentially what the movie was. Like I said, though, I mainly wanted to watch it because Mina Savarni was in it. The next one from Dark Sky Films. This is a pretty cool documentary. I watched this one last night. It's called The Sheik. It's on Iron Sheik. I always think of Iron Sheik mainly from Howard Stern's show, and he's always on there when he's on there like yelling at people and saying all kinds of terrible, dirty things to them and stuff like that. This is basically a documentary on his career, kind of talking about how he started in the very early days and then how he kind of built his way up in the business. And then it also has a lot of stuff too, talking about when wrestlers, are out of the WWE, and then they have to kind of do these small shows in gyms and stuff like that, and kind of shows kind of the sad aspect of that. And Jake the Snake is in this, talking about Iron Sheik. The Rock is in this, bunch of different people in this one talking about the Iron Sheik and his life. And I thought it was actually pretty well done. It goes through, like I said, through his entire life up until now, present day, and the things that have gone wrong and the things that have gone right and all that kind of stuff, and kind of his comeback with Howard Stern and stuff like that. The next one I got from Film Rise is All Things Must Pass, and this is the documentary on Tower Records. This is one that I was really interested in seeing. Colin Hanks, Tom Hanks' son, directed this movie. I think he raised the money for this through Kickstarter. It was one of the early Kickstarter movies, and I always loved Tower Records, Virgin Records as well, but Tower is always my favorite. Used to always go in there for DVDs mainly, and it was always like one of the earliest places I remember going, because I used to carry everything. I used to always get the Trauma movies there, and it was one of those places, everything that was new, they would carry it. So it was really, really a great place. They also had toys and stuff. It was like one of those places that I really miss, but in this documentary they even show, and I know that it's around still as well in Japan. They have a Tower Records, like a, totally thriving, really popular. This documentary, though, is basically talking about Tower Records from the beginning, how it started, up until how it grew and how it got to a billion-dollar company, and then how, in 1999 it was a billion-dollar company, and then, right afterwards, a few years later, it was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and talking about how digital music kind of killed it and all this. And what's interesting is now Tower Records would actually be very popular because, vinyl has kind of had a huge comeback, and I feel like a lot of stores, like Sam Goody and a lot of the music places, closed too early. I think things like Napster and some of that kind of stuff kind of ruined it at the time, and a lot of places kind of closed very early on when you think of places like The Wall and some of those places, and I think that they closed way too early, and now they would actually be doing pretty good, I think, because I go in a lot of music stores now, and they're packed, and it's like all of a sudden it's kind of had a huge comeback. So who knows, maybe you'll see like Tower Records or like kind of bring it back in a boutique. I mean, it's sort of a weird dream, but I kind of feel like it could happen. But it's basically, like I said, a documentary on Tower Records. The next one from Film Rise as well is called The Inhabitants, which is kind of a haunted house kind of film. From the guys that directed this are the guys who wrote the John Carpenter's film The Ward. It's basically about a couple who end up moving into an old bed and breakfast that they found out is for sale, and they end up buying it. Got it for a really good price, and there's something strange about the place, and they kind of discover like the history of what was going on there. And the one old woman who was like living there before, the one night they wake up and she's in there lurking around the house, messing around and saying like, talk, beware of the children. It's kind of a weird thing dealing with witches and stuff like that. And the husband ends up going out to work and leaving the wife there all by herself, and then strange things start to happen. Things start moving around the house and stuff like that. So kind of a creepy haunted house film. And the next one from E1 and Uncorked Films is Judas Ghost, and it's basically about this like crew that's kind of works for a university that's going in to check out this haunted school. They heard this one kind of, it's like a schoolroom kind of auditorium, and they heard that it's haunted, so they end up going in there with all this camera equipment and stuff like that to kind of document it, and they're kind of trying to do like a program about it, and they kind of talk about other encounters that they had and like exorcisms and possessions, and they kind of show all these different clips of stuff like that from some of their other cases. But they go to this room, And first, it sort of seems like nothing's wrong with it. Then all of a sudden, throughout the night, things start to get very strange. Like the door ends up missing, so they end up getting trapped in there, and the door changes positions. The guy ends up reaching his hand through the door, and he gets blood all over himself, and all kinds of strange, weird things start to happen. When they're in this place, like I said, it starts out as nothing, and then starts to get worse and worse and worse. There's a real cool thing too with this kind of thing in the ground with all this blood and everywhere. It's a kind of a creepy, weird concept. And I was reading some people's when they were talking about it. It kind of has like a kind of a feel of like a play a little bit because it's all really in this one room, and all the weird things start to happen in this room, kind of like Cube and stuff. Where it's all kind of like one setting with all this stuff kind of happening in there. The next one is this is one that I always used to like the show as a kid and had not seen this one in years, and it's Mr. Bumpy. I go bumping the night, and has that crazy opening song. It's the complete series of Mr. Bumpy, and it's all it's all like I don't know how many episodes, but it's the entire series of this, and it's basically a clay animated show that was on in the early '90s, I think '94, '95, and I used to really love this as a kid. It doesn't hold up as much seeing it now because, like I said, I have not seen this show in years, and I don't even know if it didn't really air too much. I think it was like on for a little while. Then I had like a VHS tape of this, and it's about like these creatures that kind of live under the bed, and that's essentially what it is. It's just these weird creatures doing weird stuff, and a lot of classic voice actors in this one. But I don't know. It's a fun show, and it's cool to see it's finally released. The next one from from Mill Creek as well, is My Science Project, starring Stockwell, Fisher Stevens, John Stockwell, who went on to be more of a director. He did like Turistas and things like that. Dennis Hopper. It's called My Science Project. It's about these kids who are, putting on this science project, for Dennis Hopper, their teacher. This is one of those movies too I always remember as a kid. I saw this a couple times as a kid, and I always kind of remember this. Always been a fan of Fisher Stevens as well. I always loved him in the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm actually been reviewing that Blu-ray in the update coming up this weekend. But it's and basically, in the beginning of the movie, you see this alien ship and then this like kind of machine, and they're kind of shrinking it or doing something to it. But these kids end up discovering this machine, they want to use as their science project, and they're kind of messing around with it, and it's kind of bending space and time and bringing in things from the past, like relics and stuff like that, vases and stuff like that. And it's kind of them figuring out what's going on and getting help from Dennis Hopper's character. And the last one from Mondo Macabre, I'll just cover this in case anyone says anything, is Lizard and Woman Skin, the Lucio Fulci, like the Giallo film. It's actually a pretty cool Giallo film. One of the ones I don't think I had ever seen before. Mondo Macabre, though, does really great releases on this one. Really, really good, strong new transfer on this one. Has on here, some interviews as well, and a number of different features, and then it also has the Italian and English language version. But it's essentially about this girl who's having these dreams about like her neighbor, this woman, and kind of like these parties that she's having, all these kind of weird stuff that's going on. And she has in one of her dreams that she ends up killing the neighbor, and then of course that neighbor ends up being dead. And she kind of was telling the cops about this dream and everything, and then the cops are kind of looking at her and trying to investigate and figure out exactly what had happened, and who had killed the neighbor. And that's basically what the thing was. It's like I said, it's more of a giallo kind of film, and like more of a character piece with like some really cool weird dream sequences and things like that she's having. But like I said, two really good transfer on this one, and I like a little bit of a different one for Lucio Fulci. I always think of more for like zombie and things like that. Anyway though, guys, that's all for the review portion of this video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.